The meeting's live.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to this virtual cabinet panel on community engagement and cooperative development, which is its official name. It's being conducted with members and officers at various locations, as you can see, communicating via audio, video and online. There's of course an opportunity for the public and press to listen in and view proceedings, because that's rather the point. And we have contributors from various organisations here to join in the discussion this evening. But before the meeting actually starts proper, I'd like to invite the committee member and the scrutiny officer to explain how the proceedings will work and to take the roll call to confirm that members, officers and registered speakers are in attendance. Anna.
Much, Chair. I'll just take a quick roll call. So when I call your name, please could you indicate your attendance so that we can check that you can hear and be heard. So starting with Councillor Collins.
Hello.
Hello. And Councillor Judy Billing.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Daniel Allen, not present currently. Councillor Ruth Brown, I think is just
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Dingley.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Jean Green. Councillor Green. Sorry, I didn't hear you, Councillor Green. Can you just say? Oh, I think your audio's gone, but we can come back to you. No, we've lost your audio, but I can see you're here. Councillor Tony Hunter has given his apologies. Councillor Mandy Tandy.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Kay Tart has given apologies. Councillor Ian Albert.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Joanne Cowell.
Hello, evening.
Hello, thanks. Councillor Michael Muir.
Present.
Thank you. And officers, we have Steve Crowley.
Yes, I'm here.
Thanks. Sarah Kingsley.
Hello, I'm here.
And Danny Pearson.
Hello, good evening.
I'm Anna Gavea and Lewis is doing IT for us this evening. And members of the public, we have Nick White. Can you unmute your microphone just to check it's working, please, Mr. White?
Sorry, you've muted again. Yeah, I'm here.
That's brilliant, thank you. And Catherine Bennett.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, thank you. Please note that this meeting is being streamed live onto YouTube and recorded via Zoom. Extracts from the remote and partly remote meetings protocol are included with the agenda, and the full version is available on the Council's website, which includes information regarding live streaming, noise interference, rules of debate, voting and Part 2 items. Members are requested to ensure that they are familiar with the protocol. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? No, in that case, I'll hand over to the Chair, Councillor Sam Collins. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Anna. So I'm going to try and rattle through the formalities as quickly as possible to get to the important bit, which is hearing from the public. Are there any apologies for absence? Well, the one apologies for absence I'd got was from a councillor who's here, Sarah. So thanks for joining us while on your holidays. And we've got a couple of substitutions. Ian Albert is in, as is Councillor Muir. So they're substituting for various other members.
We have apologies from Councillor Hunter.
That's right. And also from Councillor Tart as well, who Ian is in for. I don't think there's any other apologies because everybody else is here. So moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting held on 7th of June this year, I would like to propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meeting of the Cabinet Panel on Community Engagement and Cooperative Development held on the 7th of June 2021. Can I have a seconder? Judy's going to second that. Thank you, Judy. And I believe we have to take a vote on that. So if everybody can follow the voting systems using the raise hand button, if everybody approves it. Well, that's enough of us to approve it. So thank you, everybody. I'll clear that and move on. So, Chair's announcements. This meeting is about community engagement with a particular focus on social media this time. So welcome to everybody who's participating. In accordance with council policy, this video is being audio recorded as well as filmed. The audio recordings will be available on mod.gov and the film recording will be available on YouTube via the North Herts District Council channel. Well worth subscribing to. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set under the chair's announcements on the agenda, but I don't think there's probably going to be any unless anybody's a major shareholder in a social media platform, and even then I don't think it matters. We don't have any other business notified, which moves us swiftly to the main bit of the meeting, public participation, which is the members of the public's opportunity to speak. So we have Nick and Catherine with us, as well as Lewis. Raise your hand who wants to go first, because I don't have an order of people who want anything to say. So the floor is yours. Don't all rush at once. Nick White's from Royston.
I'll just sort of introduce myself. Nick White, I'm one of the admin of the Royston Reporting Facebook page, and I forget the last count, got about 15,000 people on there or something. So it has a wide reach, obviously a lot wider reach than the North Arts District Council Facebook page. So we do get a lot of stuff shared on there. One thing, I don't know if you're allowed to do it, if North Arts, I know that some people do share North Arts stuff on there, but I don't know if it's as much shared on there as could be shared on there. Because I tend to share things, maybe things that I find of interest, I think would be interesting to other people, but that you'll have certain things on there which I won't pick up on, which maybe someone at your end could put on there. So, there's certain things that are just not being seen, I think.
Okay, that's a very interesting point, Nick. And who do you think should share it? Do you think it should be council officers? Do you think it should be members of the council?
Well, I don't. Well, I suppose it depends who, sort of, what it's about, really. I obviously council. I suppose councillors can share the things, but I don't know if you can. Whoever runs the Facebook page, if they can share it direct or not.
I think it depends on the settings of the different groups. So there's the Royston group that you run. There's other groups across North Hertfordshire. So the ones down in Nebworth, even out to Kimpton, they've all got their own groups. So it depends on those group settings. Where I think on Facebook, for example, whether you can share that content across. But I know there's a number of councillors, such as myself and Ian Albert, who's grinning away, who share quite a lot of content directly from the council, specifically to their area. So it's just interesting for us to listen to you about who you think you'd like to hear from in the council, or whether you'd like it to be shared officially by the council itself.
Well, I think the main thing, whoever shares, it's just getting whatever you want to say, it's just getting it across to as many people as possible. And obviously we know there's a problem if certain councillors share something, they get attacked because of whatever party they happen to be with. So maybe if some things come, obviously there's certain things come out because of if there's a political bent to it, but a lot of information just needs to get out there.
Does anybody else have a view on this? I'll open this up to not just the public, I'll open it to the officers and the councillors as well, because it's a good topic of debate. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. So obviously I'm based in Royston, so I know Royston Reporting page quite a lot, and I followed North Herts, and I share to Royston Reporting page anything that I think may be of interest to the public, and sometimes I comment on it. What I don't do is share everything, because I think not everything is going to necessarily interest the public, and it might be just too much. I think when we had this last debate, last time we had a panel in June, we discussed this at quite some length. And I think it was felt that for officers to share to every sort of major media platform across the district would be just too difficult, which is why it was really left to local councillors to do it. But I hear what Nick's saying, that the way I do it is a bit ad hoc. As and when I see something and have time to do it. So, and that will apply to, I'm sure, all the other members as well. And some members, of course, aren't even on these platforms. So it is a bit ad hoc. It's not a strategic way of doing it. So I think if North Herts wanted to more strategically to reach people in Royston, then obviously the Royston Reporting page has a huge reach. So, but the danger is then you've got to do every reporting page in every place across the district to be fair and equitable. I think the officers would have to do that, and that makes that quite a big job, I think. So that's just my comments.
I can see Nick's got his hand up, so I'm going to come back to you, Nick.
It's just I think it's this morning where North Arts put out about the I think they've announced, and because of the hot weather, they were going to do early bin collections. Now, that is something that would have been worth getting on there as quick as possible. I shared it on there, and I don't know how long after it was put up that I put it on there, but that's the sort of thing that North Herts really want to be putting on there. A lot of the general information, a lot of people never bother looking at them anyhow, but certainly things like bins do tend to generate quite a bit of interest, especially if they're either going to be picked up early or not picked up at all.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and you've reminded me I need to put my bin out tonight. So thank you. To bring in, so some of the points raised there, actually, the person who can address that directly is in the meeting. So Sarah, do you want to come in on those points and let the public know actually who you are?
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. I'm Sarah Kingsley. I'm the communications manager for the council. In terms of sharing on Facebook groups, I think Councillor Brown kind of hit the nail on the head in that, although we would like to, in certain circumstances, there are multiple groups. I mean, there's tons of them now, that we just don't have the resource to get into those groups. What I would say is, if it's a local issue, if there's something going on locally, then we do try our best to get into those groups. So using Kimpton as an example, there was the risk of flooding in Kimpton earlier this year. And so that was an example where we tried to get into their Facebook groups so that we could put out messages to them. So we do use those groups in that respect, but also looking at it from a different perspective, I also think a lot of members of those groups do not want the council kind of selling its wares necessarily for every single thing that we do. I think it looks better if it comes from an individual rather than from the NHDC page necessarily. And I think that's where councillors can come in if they've got if there's something local going on, that they can share it into their groups. But yeah, it is a difficult one, because we do try and get into the groups, but we just can't do it all the time, and we can't do all of them.
Councillor Ian Albert, do you want to come in on that or anything else?
Yeah, just briefly. I mean, I think, again, I agree mostly with all that, Sarah and Ruth have said, and I think the Kimpton example, and yeah, as Sarah said, whether there were the floods in Kimpton, I think is a really good example of using a local Facebook or Twitter and elsewhere, but Facebook group well, because actually I think there's that is the sort of thing that's read by a relatively sort of focused number of people who may well live in the Kimpton area. So I think that's a really creative use of that group. I guess my one pushback would be, I mean, if we're using Nick's example of the bins, is whether Sarah thinks that there are maybe some, because I think you're right, we can't put everything on there, because I think that probably would be too much, because there is a lot of stuff that goes out. But if we thought there were some key ones, and I think it seems to me like the bin example is quite a good one, where we would say across the district this week or this coming days, we're going to be collecting the bins early. Whether there is using the Kimpton example, we could focus in on where the bins are being collected early, but we know where the rounds are for that, or indeed whether maybe on those kind of key messages we want to get out, then maybe is there a possibility of trying to use some of the groups in those specific instances? But I do recognise it's a big job, and I think there is so many groups now with lots of members, and lots of members, in fairness to say, I'm sure the hitching groups, for example, have got 20,000 members. I mean, blimey, that's probably rather more than people that just live in Hitchin. I mean, I know Hitchin's population is bigger than that, but the 20,000 are members of one of the hitching groups are clearly lots of people who don't live in Hitchin at all.
So, Councillor Dingley, before we open up the floor to...
Yeah, on that issue, I think, imagine, think of different levels. Imagine if the government then decided that they're going to have officers that are going to post on all these little local groups. Really, it's the other way around. So, I mean, there are official Facebook pages like NHDC, Royston Town Council, all of these government levels. And then it's a responsibility of the moderators of the local group to pick up on information and post it, because the little local groups are not regulated. They are just people's opinion. They're just local. Some of the questions are quite inane, you know, is Tesco open at 8, that sort of thing. So it's a responsibility, I think, of moderators, not the official streams. The official streams put their information out, and it's then the job of the moderators to take what they think is important and relevant to their local area and put it on, not vice versa.
That's an interesting perspective. Nick, I can see your hand shoot up on that one.
Yeah, just listen to what Sarah was saying. One of the I put quite a bit on Royce report myself, but it does take time. As moderators, obviously, I'm working while all this is going on, and if somebody wanted to put stuff, we approve everything that goes on as far as main posts go on there, so we don't get bombarded by garbage, which we've tried to get rid of a lot of the nonsense that goes on there. But it's trying to get the balance, because I put the stuff on there. None of the other admin very rarely put anything on there at all. And I think apart from councillors, I don't, and anybody connected with NHDC, I don't think anybody else ever puts anything from NHDC on there.
That's interesting.
I'm not on it.
I can see Ruth Brown's hands scooting up. So Ruth.
Yeah, just to come back to that, I mean, Nick is largely correct, but actually the community engagement officer has started posting some things to the reporting page. So Ashley Hawkins, and actually that is one thing that I think one way the community engagement team can help with this. I mean, I actually think it is a job for councillors, for members. One of the things we do is represent our local community, and we should be publicising information, sharing information about what the council's doing with our local people, the things that we think are relevant. And I think that's a role that all councillors really should be undertaking. But we are volunteers as well as Nick, who's a moderator. But then the community engagement team, they have a role as well, I think, in advertising sort of things to their local areas. So Ash covers Baldock and Royston, and so he didn't used to, but he will now put the councillor surgeries up onto the Royston reporting page and on Share Royston. Is there one other he does? Anyway, he does 2 or 3 of them, and that is something that's changed, and I think that is a good thing. But it obviously has to be selective things. He can't be doing it all the time because it's not his main job. This is the issue, which obviously Sarah Kingsley was saying. It's a capacity resource issue, isn't it, when it comes down to it? So things like the councillor surgeries are an obvious one for the community engagement team to be sharing, but there may be some other things as well that they could potentially share.
Councillor Dingley, your hand is actually physically up there.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. We need to engage with our communities, and I do by doing door knocking, and I know that doesn't have the same sort of reach, but I think it depends. The problem with unregulated ones like Royston reporting page, like for example, I've seen the police absolutely bashed on there, and different councillors bashed on there, the MPs bashed on there. And so it's not a healthy environment. In the past, when I was on it, that's my impression. And so people are reluctant then to use that platform. I think there are healthier methods, perhaps, of engaging with the public, perhaps more healthy sites, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a good take on it. Does anyone else have anything on this topic before I move to Catherine from Citizens Advice North Hertfordshire? Catherine from Citizens Advice North Hertfordshire.
Hi. So we're quite active locally on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I try and like things on the Engage North Herts site. I think maybe part of the problem is it's not easy to share from the Engage North Herts site, and I know why that is, but I think people don't know that if they do want to share something from there, it's quite easy to cut and paste or screenshot and paste and put it in a local group. That might be worth highlighting on the page. But I do think we need to be, I'm on loads of the local groups because we cover all the main towns and the villages, and you can't keep putting things on there and sharing things. It's too much. People don't want to, they'll be overloaded, and I think that would be even more so with messages from the council. So yeah, it's tricky because I mean and also all the groups have got different rules and different days you can do things as a charity, and I don't think they would like it if the council members kept sharing everything all the time.
Okay, that's noted. Do you pick up a lot of casework from social media now compared to in the past?
We have people contact me on Messenger, and we don't offer advice on Messenger at the moment, but I will forward that into our email answering system.
Oh, so there is an electronic sort of system that people can.
Yeah. So since so we were primarily face to face and we were primarily drop in, but now we do web chat, and we do a telephone call back as well as our advice line, and email. We try and respond within 48 hours. So
really good.
And those are that's the kind of thing I'm trying to publicise on the local groups and to local councillors as well.
I think you raised quite an important point there, Catherine, about sharing of posts. Something quite often I find is people contact you, say, can you share that? I post something as a councillor, and they say, can you share this post? Yes, of course you can. I'm just wondering if that's something that we can sort of engage in our posts as the council on our official outlets, that are saying, look, please share this. You're welcome to put this wherever you like, because we're putting this information out for your.
I don't think that's possible from the Engage North Herts site, because it's members only, and it is possible from some of the local sites but not others. So anyone could share anything from the North Hertfordshire Citizens Advice site, because the way I've got it set up, but that's a page, not a group.
I wonder if that's something we need to look at as the council. I think that would be something to discuss. Sarah's got her hand up. Sarah.
Just to clarify, you can share from our North Hertfordshire District Council main Facebook, Twitter pages. It's just the Engage North Herts page that you can't. And I know we talked about this last time, but the reason being is that it's a private group. It's been set up as a private group. But we do obviously work with colleagues in community engagement. So we cross-share quite a lot of stuff anyway between the Engage North Herts page and our own corporate pages. But I mean, it's a good point about on our own posts, perhaps we could, if there's something of real importance, we could say, please share this with your networks and at least get that message out, because we can do that on our main feeds.
Yeah, I think it's really useful, but I think some people do it and some people just never think to do it. But when it happens organically, if someone, a member of the public, for instance, sees one of our posts and shares it for us, that's much more successful than me doing it.
Now, does anyone else have anything to add to that before I move to I think they're mini presentations, I think I'll best call them, from our officers. Leave the floor open for another moment. Oh, no hands going up. So I think we haven't heard from him yet. I think we should hear from Steve Crowley first. And
thank you.
Steve, can you give us
thank you, Sam. There's not much for me to say on this one, because Sarah is going to take the lead, but the report is, or should I say the information note is as it is. I think the key things are in 3.1.1, which covers the areas which Sarah's going to give a quick update on. So I will pass over to Sarah. She is the expert at this and not myself.
So I will be brief, but I thought it might be useful to go off track a little bit in terms of not just talking about social media. Firstly, a very brief update is that we are currently developing a new NHDC website. And so that's in development. We're basically reviewing all of the content with all of the different service areas, having a big old clear out of the content. And we are launching the new website basically section by section. So we're going to have a beta website running alongside our existing website. So my only plea now is that when we do launch the beta website, it would be great to get some feedback from members of the public about the new website. And there will be feedback buttons on every single page so that you can feedback, because that will really help us while we develop the rest of the site. So that's it on the website. It won't be till probably September until we have the first sections live, I wouldn't have thought. Just briefly on social media, just to plug basically that our colleagues in the waste team, if you weren't aware, have recently launched their own Facebook group. It's a public group. They're called the Waste Warriors. So the aim of the group is really that they wanted to get away a little bit from some of the more corporate conversations that we might have on our own pages. So it's not about missed bins or bin collection days or anything like that. It's more about waste reduction and trying to generate a sense of community around that and people sharing tips and ideas and things. So I think that's a really useful addition to our social media presence. So do go and have a look if you haven't already. And another thing on social media, I thought you might be interested, is that we are currently looking at a tool which it sounds a bit Big Brother, but it's not really. It's a social listening tool, and essentially it's basically where it scans all the local pages, all the local Facebook groups, all sort of different local pages, and it uses AI basically to essentially tell us what the community are interested in, and and it also can generate sort of sentiment analysis as well. So it's basically, instead, it's not about us pushing out messages, it's about us finding out what's important to the community at the minute. And so if, for example, we put out a message about, I don't know, I want to say something controversial. If it was about something controversial, and then we could basically use this tool to find out what the community actually really think about that. So that's something that's in development and is a way of us kind of getting into those local Facebook groups that we can't always necessarily get into as well. But it's not being signed off. It's just something that we're working through now. And finally, sorry, I'm speeding along. I just wanted to give an update to get some feedback really on an idea we've been having between my team, community engagement team. Basically, we're looking to review our consultation strategy this year. And as part of that, we've been looking at some online engagement tools. So really, it's about getting away from just pushing out surveys. And one of them calls itself like a town hall for the digital era, which I think is quite a good expression of how it encapsulates it quite well. So essentially, I can't really show you anything because we haven't procured it as yet, but essentially you can have like this platform where you have themed hubs. So you might have a theme around a particular project. You might have a theme around around waste, or even around a cabinet panel, for example, you could have a theme, and they're all groups of, that you can have. And basically there's lots of different tools you can use. So you can have things like storytelling, you can have interactive mapping, you can have surveys, you can do quick polls, you can have a document repository and do like a timeline of tools and a timeline of your project. And the good thing about it is it's really a two-way thing. So we can get all the feedback in using all these lovely different tools, but everyone can see the feedback, and then everyone can see when we feedback again. So it's kind of getting that two-way conversation going, but publicly. We can do things like video galleries, also, yeah, just participatory budgeting. So lots of things going on. It's just kind of, that's where we're at in terms of our development of the next phase of the consultation strategy. So I just thought it might be of interest to this group. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Sarah. And I saw a hand go flying up from Hitchens Marketplace. Councillor Billing. Judy, I'm talking to you.
Yes, I know. I was just putting, I don't have to rush into it. I was just overwhelmed then after I put my hand up to hear Sarah talking about participatory budgeting, because we tried some really interesting participatory budgeting with groups of young people in Hitchin about 10, 15 years ago. The council wasn't terribly supportive at the time, but so if we can get back into some things like that, particularly with young people, it doubles as a way of developing skills, democratic skills for young people, as well as getting some sensible decisions about what people want things spent on. But that wasn't what I flew my hand up to say. What I did, though, was when Sarah started talking about the town hall tool, I do think we shouldn't keep calling everybody tools on such a hot night, but there you go. What I thought was, can we adapt those to the language of North Herts? I said that because a town hall sounds terribly Joe Biden to me. And it's not a language that we've tended to use, but we have indeed for many years used town talks, councillor surgeries. So is it finessable enough to be able to use the language of our council only in new digital ways? That was one question. And then after that, I'm happy to say something about use of social media and town-based sites for me. But over to you, Sarah, sorry.
Yes, so it is totally customizable. The whole town hall thing was I just quite liked the phrase as a way of saying it's a town hall for the digital era, if I get the point. No, it's not. It's totally customizable. Everything on the page is ours, basically. We just buy a license and that we can do whatever we like with it. So you can set up multiple projects and you can use any of the tools. You can call them whatever you like. But yeah, it's a good tool. I mean, there are several of them, but they are good tools in terms of, it's quite a lot of councils using them now. Cornwall are using them. Cornwall is a good example, actually, to go and have a look at. I can always send a link around after.
That would be great, Sarah, if you could. Judy, you had a follow-up on...
Yeah, well, it wasn't a follow-up. It was really a recap from the earlier conversation that I was too slow to get into about the use of social media sites across the district. And I fess up to the fact that I can no longer follow all the Facebook pages which are to do with my town and followed by lots of people in my town. I just can't do it. It would take all of my time and would prevent me from doing anything else at all. So what I'm tending to do now, and I just saw one come up on my little screen, is notice, have it set so that if somebody says, what is Judy Billing doing about that then I will see it, then I will know about it. On other occasions, Ian Albert will say, have you seen what they're saying on X Facebook page? But otherwise, it really is, and I say this to any newer councillors desperately trying to cope with it all, it's just not possible. Certainly with the number of Facebook pages we have devoted to things in Hitchin, it's completely impossible. What is sometimes useful, though, for councillors particularly, instead of going all heavy political, which does tend to just annoy people, I have to say, unless it's on Politics Thursday when you're allowed to on various Facebook pages, what is sometimes useful is just scrolling through some of the conversations that are going on those Facebook pages and dropping in a helpful comment when you've actually got something helpful to say, which hopefully as councillors we do occasionally. Rather than just try and monitor everything. That was all. Thank you.
I think that's fine advice there from Judy, and I have to say I adopt the same approach to the Facebook groups because there are so many of them and so many comments. It is quite difficult to track them all. Councillor Ian Albert, please. The members of the public, by the way, feel free to jump in here. I'm going off piste. It's a little bit irregular, but feel free to ask questions as well.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, I think in terms of one of the things that Sarah mentioned, well, I mean, the council will be looking, I think, to have discussion with residents about budgets and priorities for the district. We will have in the coming years, depending on what sort of funding settlements we get, some quite difficult decisions reach on those things, and we are certainly, this administration is committed to having discussions with residents. And I think obviously how we involve that using social media and all the other communication tools we've got, participatory budgeting, whatever these things might be, it'd be interesting obviously sort of getting people's feedback about how not necessarily now, about how we do that, and what they would like to see and hear, and so on from the council. The other thing is that I know I think Judy and Ruth before the pandemic, and there was also something we were looking at when we were doing some work around the Hitchin Town Centre strategy was of course seeing how we can engage with, I mean, I know this is the horrible phrase, is engage with young people and so on, but I think the whole point there was to understand, using whether it's social media or what other ways that we can, of actually finding out from young residents what they want from to see in their town, and how they would like their town and their district to change and evolve in the coming years, and how we do that using creatively through communication and social media does seem to me to be a really important thing that we would should and must do, because obviously young residents, young people are our future, and we want to involve them in the decision making. And I think obviously looking at how we do that, and I think that how we use our communications back into the community engagement piece that Judy and Ruth are taking forward as the councillors responsible for that as part of the North Arts Cabinet, I think is going to be really critical. And I've been interested, again, obviously looking to how we might better be able to do that in the coming months.
Councillor Dingley.
Thanks. I've just got a question about listening tools. An alarm bell rang because I was chatting to a friend the other day, and she was saying they were just chatting about maybe getting a gazebo. Next thing she knew, on her Facebook feed, she had an advert about gazebos. And I don't know if we're talking about the same sort of technology, but she found that a very much Big Brother, actually, that she hadn't inputted anything, but some technology had picked up on the word as a buzzword and then was marketing at her. So is it anything like that, or it's completely separate from that?
My understanding, and I'll come to Sarah in a second to explain it better, is that it's essentially, I mean, you've got councillors reading the groups and we're listening as councillors, but also it, I think, would help us as essentially having a computer that's listening to help us listen better. We're not going to start trying to sell you gazebos or the Hitchin Beach, which is a wonderful thing to do, or the Market Theatre, or any of the other wonderful sites of North Hertfordshire, which is the press release that's going out tomorrow, I believe. Sarah.
Is that right?
Yes, it's definitely, it's not, it sounds bigger, but it's definitely not. It basically uses like an algorithm. So it takes all the different groups, and so it's all data from like unofficial conversations. So it's not from, so the point being that it's not from our own channels, it's from lots of different channels. It takes data from those, but it's all completely anonymized data. There's nothing, right. We couldn't possibly recognize anybody in it. And it uses AI to basically analyze that data, tells us what the topics, what people are talking about generally, not specific to Mr. X in Hitchin, and then it uses sort of machine learning to pick up on those topic on and what the sentiment is of those conversations. So it's definitely a listening tool, but it's not actually taking any data from any private source, and it's not feeding anything back into those sources. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To come back to you on that, Sarah, would the, this is my own information, I don't actually know the answer, would the sort of the output, the report from the AI sort of say residents in Ashwell are talking about the North Herts Links bus service and the fact that they want a new bus stop somewhere, or would it just go, this is a keyword that's coming up a lot?
I'm not sure how deep. We're still looking at it in terms of how deep it. I think it does do it by very local areas. I don't think it just does it generally, and it's not just on keywords either, which is interesting. So it doesn't just do it, if they mention NHDC or, but yeah, it's all very clever stuff that I have not got my technical head around quite yet. I believe we're having a demonstration at PLB though, for those of you who come to PLB. It's very clever.
Can we explain
I
what
just think
PLB
it will help
means,
us.
Sarah? Sarah, can we explain what
Sorry.
PLB means?
Yeah, so PLB is Political Liaison Board at the council. So it is formed of the leadership team of officers and then cabinet councillors. That's correct, isn't it?
Basically, I think something I think would be quite nice to do for this panel is once and if we decide to go ahead with that tool. I don't think that decision's yet fully taken, but if and when we decide to go ahead with that tool, it might be nice to come back to this group and maybe get a little demonstration for the public to see how it works, because obviously when people hear of AI, they think of films with Will Smith in and robots trying to take over the world. So maybe it put the public's mind at ease a little bit to show that actually this is just a tool to make the council's job more efficient and more effective.
Yeah, I think possibly showing what a typical report might look like would probably be the most helpful. It's obviously just because we haven't paid for that yet, we can't pull off our own reports, but yes, absolutely, that sounds like a good idea.
Brilliant. I can see Councillor Dingley's hand is up. I'm not sure if it's a legacy hand or not.
It was a legacy hand, but I just, as you were saying that, I just thought there are massive swathes of people who do not engage with Facebook. Yeah, I suppose they'll just still be using the traditional methods. Yeah, it's just a way of tapping into different. Okay, thanks. I think
Councillor Shoeleather isn't going to be saved by this.
Cool, thank you.
Does anybody else have any further comments on this subject before I move on to the next week? Councillor Billing does. Judy.
I just wanted to answer what Sarah just said, because Sarah Dingley, because I was really interested in your using the phrase traditional methods, because some of us have been councillors since there wasn't even email. So, some of you will regard email as an old-fashioned traditional method, but actually, of course, traditional methods change all the time. And that's why I think we need to be not fearful of getting into stuff like Facebook pages, if only we can find a manageable and bearable way of doing it. But honestly, it's true. In the olden days, all you could do was write a letter or hang on the phone. That's a thing that was on your desk in your house with a curly bit of wire and just sit there hanging onto a phone until somebody answered, because actually they probably didn't have an answer phone on. And I'm sorry to be sort of slightly satirical about it, but it just made me smile when you said traditional methods. That was all. Sorry.
Yeah, I was surprised. Last week I did a little bit of door knocking, and about 60% of the people I knocked on the door for did never use the internet, were very uncomfortable with it, and felt very cut off. And I know that doesn't mean that we ignore it. Obviously, that's ridiculous. But I think just not to forget those people still.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's my concern. Okay, thank you.
Well, I think that's a really valid concern as somebody who doesn't even use a smartphone or own a television. So I think that's, I'm a bit of a technical Luddite myself. Do we have any further points on this? Judy's got a legacy hand, but I think that is just a legacy hand because she's not looking at the screen. Does anyone else have anything further to add before I move on to the next section, which I'm suspecting isn't going to take very long because it's members' discussion, and we've sort of been doing that already. Right, then I'll formally move on to the members' discussion. Do any members have any further discussion to discuss? Hands up in the time-honoured way, please. The traditional time-honoured way. Well, that was a quick members discussion then. Oh no, I've got two hands up. Sorry, Councillor Billing got there first.
It's interesting the way this particular form of technology has become a traditional time-honoured way in 18 months, before which I'd never actually heard of Zoom. I suppose I'm getting a bit frustrated because we've had this conversation before at a cabinet panel, and the councillors always express the frustrations of the limited amount that they can do, although we desperately want to be engaging with as many people as possible per hour in our base places. And we don't seem to find solutions. I'm not asking somebody now to find me a solution, but I wish somebody would, so that we had a way of going forward which used traditional and modern methods, but didn't make us constantly feel that we were running to catch up and never ever could quite make it. It's a bit dispiriting sometimes, that's all.
I think that sounds like something maybe we need to add to the next agenda item. But before we get to that, I'm going to come to Sarah Kingsley first. Sarah.
I just wanted to come back to that point because it has something that I have wondered whether members would appreciate, and it's not necessarily to answer now, but is whether you would like myself or someone from my team to do some training for members on social media at some point. I mean, obviously I haven't scoped anything out, but I just wondered if that might help at some point.
GD, looks like you're about to come back.
Could you tell that my brain was whirring? What I was thinking was two things. First of all, yes, please. I'm sure that would be a very, very good idea. Member development is always a good idea, and no less in this area than any other. But how it will help us get to this conjunction of manageable time and amount of response into our communities, if you can cover that, that'll be absolutely excellent, Sarah, please. And solve that one for us as well. Yes, please.
I think write that one down, Sarah. And also, I think, Anna, that's something to add to the work programme, which is the next agenda item. But before we get to that, I'm going to come to Councillor Brown. Ruth.
It was just a comment, really. But just before I make it, I agree that it would be really helpful if someone from Sarah's team offered some training for members. Like Judy, I think it's really important to always develop ourselves. But I do also think this is quite a difficult one to solve. But maybe it's about thinking about, if you've got so much time, what can you do? If you've got a bit more time, what can you do? And about prioritizing how you use social media to make it as effective engagement tool as possible. And that will depend on the different councillors and their lifestyles and their work commitments and all of that. So that would be really, really helpful. I know I did do some training with my party on this, which was really, really helpful. And he basically talked about what the most important things were to get involved in, and then if you've got more time you can do this and that. So I think that would be helpful. And of course everyone will be at different stages, so I don't quite know how you organize that, so to make sure that the training is as effective as possible. You might need to do a basic and an intermediate and advanced or something, or find out by questionnaire what people's prior knowledge is and prior uses. But anyway, that's nuts and bolts, something that could be developed. No, I was just going to make a comment coming back to the Waste Warriors. I just wanted to highlight what Sarah said about the Waste Warriors Facebook page. I joined that before it was named, and we were actually asked what we would like to call it, and Waste Warriors won the competition. And I think it's been a really useful, well, so far I think it's a really useful Facebook page, people sharing lots of ideas of, which is a really one of the most important issues we face right now, is about climate and climate change, and being as sustainable and responsible as possible. And I would just encourage anybody who's not already on it to engage with it and share all the things you do to minimise waste and your impact on the climate. So that was all I was going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Well, if no councillors have any more members' discussion, I shall move the discussion on to the final item on the agenda, which is actions arising and the work programme. Now, I have noted a couple of points on this. Firstly, recent council meetings have been having quite a low public engagement, and I suspect that it might be partly down to the fact that the council meeting calendar no longer has council meetings on the website, but I think that's something that will possibly be addressed by the new website when that comes along later in the year. So perhaps something to add to what we want to do, if other members of the committee, or the cabinet panel, I should call it, are in agreement, is perhaps we should have something on community engagement with the council's meeting schedule, or something of that sort, if that's what people think would be of interest. I'll rattle on if nobody says no. I see no no's, so I'll carry on. And then something we don't really, the first meeting we had of this year was on arts and engagement in North Hertfordshire. That was very, very effective and very large and really positive meeting. And I think that's partly because it had a clear theme. And I'd be quite keen, and I will talk to Judy about this, but my feeling is that it's nicer if these meetings have a very clear theme and a direction of sort of travel and something specific we want to cover off. It doesn't stop us covering off other stuff as well, but a sort of headline act, if you like. We don't have one of those for the next one of these meetings in September, and very much open to suggestions for that. They don't have to come right now. But it would be nice if somebody could email them, suggest them, tweet us, Facebook us, Insta thingy, probably not WhatsApp because I can never make it work. And but please do get in touch because we would like to hear from you. But I will leave the floor open. I'm looking for hands to go up, but Judy has got the thoughtful face on. I'm wondering if she's going to come in because she is the co-chair of this.
I wish you'd stop trying to read my brain.
Sorry.
So no, yes, thoughtful isn't the same as I need to say something. So no, I don't need to say something. I just need to carry on being thoughtful. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Steve Crowley has his hand up. Steve.
Thank you, Chair. It was just regarding obviously topics. We did have originally topics planned, but as we're looking to change how this specific committee goes forward, the aim is to meet soon to re-look at what we're going to cover going forward, and that obviously would include yourself, Judy, and the other relevant execs.
Absolutely, thanks, Steve. And yeah, any members of the public, any other council members, anybody you know actually has an idea of a topic they'd like us to discuss, please do suggest it. It will be listened to. So we're very welcome and open to ideas on that. And even if you're watching on YouTube at home, please do drop an email to the council website. All the email details are on there. So we're happy to hear from you and anybody at home. So we need to have a just quick review of the work programme of the cabinet panel. And Anna, is there anything we need to urgently look at that's on that?
I think it was just the review, the ongoing review of the website that we're doing, that Sarah's mentioned, was on the work programme, and then we're looking to add anything from this meeting. So I think we've got 3 items to add to it today: the training and the looking at the council's meeting schedule, and then thinking of topics for future meetings. I think those are the 3.
Okay. Does anyone have any other items they'd like to raise or have put onto the work programme? If they don't, I think we're moving towards the close of the meeting. I will pause and wait for anybody's hand to go up. No hands going up. So I think that leaves me with not much else to do other than to wish you all a fine and warm evening. I suggest everybody gets a nice cold liquid of some description, whatever you fancied. Judy's already got hers, and I suspect everybody else should have them. And Nick White has very clearly highlighted a good place to be, which is in the garden, enjoying the weather. I wish everybody have a good evening, and I call this meeting to a close. Thank you all for attending.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks, Sam. Bye.